Hello and welcome to Creation Station with Ms. Rucker. Today we are going to be learning about a new artist and a little bit about his movement, and then we're going to have our project we're going to do at the end. You are going to need a few materials in order to do this project. You're going to need a ruler. You are going to need an assortment of circles. Now, that doesn't have to be complicated. You can go to the kitchen cabinet and get some cups and some bowls. When I started grabbing mine, I grabbed an assortment of things such as a roll of tape. And I even got like a little cup that sometimes your liquid medicine might come in. It's well cleaned. I found the top to a jar. I found another top to something we had in the cabinet. This was something off of one of my hairspray containers. My glue stick. Top off of my son's shaving cream. You might get me if he sees it missing, so I've got to make sure I put everything back. But if you'll notice, all the sizes of things are different sizes. Some are different size circles. So you're going to need to stop. You can pause the video here. We're going to go get you a few things. Make sure you get a ruler, and you're going to need paper. If you don't have a ruler, that is perfectly okay, because we can take a sheet of paper and fold it. And a folded sheet of paper will give us a nice straight edge, okay? So you're going to need paper, pencil, the assortment of circles, and a ruler or another sheet of paper we can fold. So I'm going to let you take a moment. You can pause it if you need to go get the materials. Come back so we can play. All right. Today we're going to learn about an artist named Mr. Delaunay, Robert Delaunay. Now, I'm pronouncing that kind of funny because he was from France, so his name should be pronounced kind of a French way. But here in America, we might say Delaunay. He was born in France, as I said. He was born in 1885, and he lived to be until 1945. So he lived to be about 70 years old. So he had a long, flourishing life. He and his wife, Sonia, they started a whole new movement in art called Orphism. It's very similar to Cubism, and Cubism we've talked about before. Cubism is a type of art with lots of fracture. That means kind of broken up geometric shapes. And yes, they look like something, but it's very abstract. It's not realism at all. But with Orphism, it was all concerned about shapes and colors and how they came together. And here's some examples of his work. If you will notice here in the one on the left-hand side, it has a bunch of different shapes put together, but they're not necessarily circles. And you see how the lights and the colors come together. It's beautiful. It's very intriguing, isn't it? It is not realism. It's not even abstract realism. This is called non-objective art. That means it's beautiful, but it doesn't necessarily look like a specific object. So it's non-objective, not an object. If you look here on the right, here we have a lot of circles put together and then colored within the circles. And this is another example of the work that Mr. Delaunay and his wife Sonia worked on. Now, he was very enthralled by the circles, and he did that in a lot. It was a motif he did in a lot of his work. He was very interested in using the circles and how the colors came together to create beautiful art. I really enjoy this one here on the right with the 3 circles in a line, but yet the colors flip-flop and play together. And he's got a definite color scheme going on. And it's nicely balanced so that we have strong colors opposite of one another and balancing the picture out. And if you look at the one here on the right, there's lots of colors in that one and a lot of circles, completely different from the original one we saw on the left. The one on the right makes me think of a patchwork quilt. So, what are concentric circles? Those are circles that have a center point, and each circle around it gets larger and larger. You might see a concentric circle if you throw a pebble in some water, and you'll see the ripples go out. They create circles that go out and out. And so that is a new word for us, concentric circles. They get progressively larger. And here, on this side of here, where I have another example of his work, we see where there's a small center circle, and then there's a larger one, and a large one. And this one right here in the middle that I'm making my cursor go over kind of makes me think of a CD or a DVD. So, we're going to do an artist study of Robert Delaunay. Now, when you are copying an artist's work, and you tell everyone that it's a copy. And that's called an artist study. Lots of the old masters used to pick out somebody else and they would recreate their work. Not because they were trying to forge it or take it for their own. They let other people know it was that artist study, but they were learning by imitating that artist. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to be learning as we imitate Mr. Delaunay. So we're going to create a work that looks like some of his works. So today, I've already started with a sheet here where I have drawn circles all over this page. And something I want to point out, because I tell you this all the time, it is perfectly okay if we make mistakes. We are human, we make mistakes. If y'all were perfect, I would need to be the student and you would need to be my teacher. So if you'll look at this work, I have lots of mistakes. And I have an eraser, so I can try to correct some of them. See, I didn't. This one actually ran off the edge, which is fine. That's actually good because that creates interest when things sometimes go off the edge. And I'm going to erase this a little bit so you can see it well. If you'll see right there, I made a mistake. And I'm going to need to go in and erase a little bit to make it cleaned up a little bit. Now, all I did with this was I took some of my circles that I found and I traced around them. So I'm going to do a demo so that you can see how to do this. Took that aside. So we have a clean canvas here. I have my paper in the landscape orientation. I could easily do this in portrait. Remember, portrait is when it goes up and down, and landscape is when it's wide, okay? So portrait's when it's turned so it's tall, and landscape is when it's wide. I have it on landscape. This one, since it's non-objective, it doesn't really matter if you want to go landscape or portrait. So I'm going to start. I learned a little trick as I was doing this because I made some mistakes. And I learned it's best to start with the smaller circle first. It's harder to see when you're putting something larger on it. So this is going to be tricky because it's not clear. So I will say it is easier if you find something that is clear. And I'll just go around it. And I'm being careful. I'm moving my hand as it goes around. And so that way I can easily, but see, I didn't get it perfectly centered. And I'm not going to worry about that, even though it would be nice if it were perfectly centered. But I'm human, and I do make mistakes. Now I'm going to show you here I already did that one. I've already done the larger one. I'm going to do the one in the middle, and I'm going to show you that it does make it a little more complicated if you do it that way. So, and now I've got 3 circles. Now I could go in with this big puppy here and add another circle around it. This is my masking tape. And the fun thing about the masking tape, especially if it has the big circle in the middle, I could stick my pencil on the inside and get 2 circles out of that. See? And you see my mistakes because what? Oh yes, I'm human. So I'm just going to erase those. Now I've done one here, and I really want to fill up my canvas because we want to make sure the canvas is nicely balanced, and we've used a lot of, we've got the right amount of stuff filling it up, and then we want to have a lot of unused negative space. We don't want to have a lot of that, so we want to fill it on up. So I'm going to go back to my original one. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to begin to color in our concentric circles. And if you'll look on the screen there, you'll see to the side I didn't show you an example. Now, that one there has lines in it. I don't want my 2nd and 3rd graders to worry about adding those lines, okay? Y'all are just going to color in each circle with differing colors. And where one runs into the other, you don't color in that. So if you'll notice here, this part is in front, and then that part stops, which makes it look like it's in back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase this part too, this line, so it looks like it's completely in back of that other one, so it's on top, okay? So I should have made this circle go all the way around. I wonder which one did I use for that. And we'll carry it on around. So, I should have noticed that earlier. Now, this one now is in front of that one, and I erase all the circles that belong to the other set. I always tell y'all to write lightly until you get it right, and then go darker. And this is a perfect example because had I written lightly, it would have been much easier to erase those. So, this is where your color pencils or crayons are going to come into this, and we're going to get to have fun with those. Now, I have an assortment of things beside me, and I do not have my crayons beside me. So I'm going to use my color pencils. Guys, this is where craftsmanship comes in. We don't want to scribble scrabble. We want to make sure that we color in neatly each color field. So I'm going to come and outline it a little bit. I want my lines in my coloring to go in the shape of what I'm coloring. I'm doing a circle. I don't want to go across my circle. It will not look nice. So I want to go with the circle because that's what I'm coloring in. And I'm going to color it in neatly. I want to make sure I get all those white spots as if I poured paint perfectly in that spot. Or even if I had cut out paper and laid it down, that would have been a perfectly solid color. So you want to take your time and be very patient. And art is relaxing. It can take our minds off of things. It's not a rush. Sometimes I have to step away from my art and come back. You know, when we're in the classroom, sometimes we stop because time runs out and we have to go back to our class. And then we'll come back the next week and work on it some more. And sometimes that break is nice. Well, you're at home now doing this artwork, and you can take your time and work on it. Take a break if you need to and come back to it. Because what's important is that you do a good job and you use good craftsmanship. So I've colored this in all the way around. And I'm going to raise it up because the light is bleaching it a little bit. See? And I've tried to do it very smoothly and neatly. What goes well with these colors, this is when you start thinking about color schemes. And here I have some examples of our color wheel. Red, green, purple, blue, yellow, orange. I did that all out of order, didn't I? But that's okay, because something I wanted to point out was that, remember, we have color schemes. Green, blue, and purple are our cool colors. They're chill, they relax us. But then yellow, orange, and red, they're our warm colors, and they hype us up, and they get us so excited. So those are some of our color schemes. Then you can have something called analogous colors. That's a word, analogous. And that's when you have three colors side by side on the color wheel. Or, so here, green, blue, and purple are three colors side by side. Yellow, orange, and red are three colors. Here we could do yellow, green, and blue. That's three colors side by side. Now, there's also something called complementary colors. They complement one another. They go well together. Such as red and green. Red is like, well, hello, green. Don't you look lovely today? I love that color on you. It is beautiful. And green, of course, is red. You always look radiant and so warm and inviting. That is a perfect shade for you. See, they complement one another. And those colors are always across on the color wheel. They get to stare and gaze at each other. Yellow and purple are complementary colors. And orange and blue, they go well together. So I might choose to use a complementary color scheme. I might want to use in here, because I only have two circles, I might want to use red and green. Over here I have three. I might want to use analogous colors. Or I could use the warm colors, and here cool colors. I can use a color scheme as I go throughout, and I want to make sure I balance it as I color. Now, that is what my second and third graders are going to do. You're going to color your page. And I'm going to go back and show you this picture again of Mr. Delaunay's work. And if you'll see, he colored his entire work. Everything is colored beautifully. Now, I know that's a lot of coloring. I will not require you to color the background unless you feel froggy and you want to do that. And that's perfectly okay. Now, fourth and fifth. I think it's time to challenge you, to stretch you, to help you grow. So you are going to need the ruler. Because what you're going to do is you are going to draw those lines like we see in his. And we're going to draw from one side of the circle to the other. That is called the diameter. Ooh, I brought math into art. The diameter of the circle is the width or the way to cross it. So I'm going to lay my ruler down, And I can go across just one. I'm going to try to do it so it's even. Doesn't mean it always will because sometimes our eyes fool us. And I'm going to do a line going across the circle, which means I drew a line on the diameter. And I could do one the same way there, or I can go back and do it this way here, and then pick up and go and do this one as well. And what I've done is I've created a different pattern on here. And I think I'm going to create, I'm going to get this line to keep on going and go across this circle here. Yes, I like that. And in fact, I think that's going to make it go across the page altogether. And uh-oh, I ran out of space. I very carefully slide my ruler down and make sure it stays on that line I've created so it can finish its journey across the page. Ta-da! I've done it. Now, guess what? If you'll notice on this one done in the style of Delaunay's work, every time there's a line, it creates a new color field. So I want you to go back on each one and create a new color field, okay, in every single one of those. So let me go back and I'll show you. You see, just like in the one over here, where each section has its own color, the lines created a new section. So that's what you're going to do. And I am excited to see what y'all create, and I can't wait to see you upload it into our online classroom. And I hope you have a wonderful time. Happy creating!